Hello and welcome to Asia Gaming Briefs podcast series. Today I'm talking with Professor Wolfgang Arlt. He's the founder and director of the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute. We're going to be talking about Golden Week and where the Chinese actually went. We know they didn't go to Macau, but what did they do? And we also talk about the million-dollar question as to when China will reopen its borders. Thank you for joining us, Professor Wolfgang. Very, very nice to see you again. Obviously, Golden Week for Macau has been a complete wash. What about the rest of China?
Well, the Chinese obviously had no choice for traveling other than domestic. They're still caged in their country. But even with that, many Chinese have been traveling. But according to the data we get from China, it has been less than in 2019. And even a little bit less than 2020. So it was expected to be better, but of course in recent weeks there have been new flaring ups of the cases in some parts of China, and so it seems also that the government position was actually discouraging people to travel. So it's still probably the Chinese tourism industry, it makes more money than tourism industry in many other parts of the world, but still it has been, I think, quite a disappointment.
Right. Where did they go when they were traveling?
Well, we can see that there have been some trends already starting from last year, which seem to continue, that there is something new, staycation, that people actually stay in their own region. Self-drive is very popular, which means that you go maybe just a few hundred kilometers away to some close by places, using RVs, so caravanning has gained importance. So this is one trend. And the other trend is, of course, to go to places which feel almost like outside of the country. So Yunnan or Tibet or Inner Mongolia or Guangxi, where you have minority people. So all these mostly fake culture villages where the minority people put on their traditional dress during the day and go back to their jeans in the evening when the tourists are gone. So that this is something where I think for many Chinese, so that they can feel it's almost like a foreign country visit. And you have, of course, Hainan, which is a duty-free island, so for shopping and for luxury tourism. So if you want to have a feeling which is almost like Dubai, then it is Hainan. But clearly, it is what has changed is, and I had a couple of discussions about this, that it is now. So I think many Chinese have been surprised how many different parts of China are, and that is, so it became more prestigious. So I think before, if you were not traveling outbound, you were either poor or too stupid or to travel, or didn't dare to travel. So I think it has, in line with the government policies, it has become more like a patriotic thing and a politically correct thing to enjoy your own motherland. So that is another trend. There's something called Guochun, which means buy things made in China. So many brands, now the luxury brands get competition from Chinese brands, and so this idea of patriotic customer behavior, I think, is also in tourism. So that's what we can see. But it's clearly people travel less, but they spend less even more. So the
Right.
spend is going down more than the number of travels.
Do you think once the borders do open up that there is still that pent-up demand there, or have we seen a bit of a sea change at all?
Well, there is, of course, there's a lot of pent-up demand, and don't forget, not all travel is leisure. So there are certainly some students here in Hamburg in Germany, Chinese students who got a baby in the meantime, and the poor grandparents for more than a year had no chance to see the baby. And you have a lot of business people, and of course you can do some business on Zoom, but if you have a Chinese company with an office in, let's say, Europe, and they want to employ a new CEO, or say you want to meet this person personally before you decide, and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of demand, educational demand to students now. Universities are opening up to face-to-face teaching. So now the students have to come to the universities abroad. So there's a lot of that. And also, of course, there is still a high demand to go away. Of course, if it is not 2 seasons, they couldn't travel. So I wouldn't say that the pent-up demand has doubled. So there is some things are lost simply in time. You can't go back in time. So, but clearly there will be lots of Chinese people traveling once they are allowed to. And there have been surveys saying that about half of the Chinese are saying as soon as it is possible, and they think that the destinations are more or less safe, so that the majority of people there have been vaccinated, then they will travel.
Right. That's an interesting point, I guess. And then we come around to, when will that be? When will they be allowed to do it? I mean, China's probably one of the only countries in the world that still has a rigid zero COVID policy.
There are two more. One is North Korea, and the other is Turkmenistan.
Right. Okay.
But yes, of course. No, you're right. No, of course, China is the only country in the world left now that even the Aussies and the Kiwis have found out that this is a nonsense policy. But China is the only country still insisting. And I mean, it reminds me of the fool sitting on the bank of the river who wants to cross the river, and he says, okay, I will wait until the water stops. And the river flows on forever. When will China open up? I mean, this is a $1 million question, obviously. I've been asked this many times. And I have to say that I have been, throughout the year, I have been rather on the optimistic side. And in spring, I assumed that by now we will have the Chinese outbound tourism starting again. But with all the changes in the politics in China, with all this radical developments which were done regardless of the economic costs, and this is the closure of harbors just because there's a few cases of people getting COVID-19, but nobody has died in China on COVID-19 now for more than half a year. So there is no COVID-19 in China in terms of people dying from that. So, but also all the other activities, all the actions against the tech companies, which cost trillions of dollars, but also that there has been an announcement that the affluent Chinese will have to pay more taxes in the future, that you are not allowed to have your kids learning English with a foreigner online anymore, that now from one-child policy, now that there is pressure put on people to have more children, and so there's a lot of activities where you would think from an economic point of view, wow, this is the energy cuts latest, where you think, oh, from an economic point of view, that's a big problem. The government will have to do something against it. But where this is seen, it seems that politics have taken the upper hand position, and so therefore the argument closing the border is bad for the Chinese economy at the moment doesn't seem to have much traction in Beijing, and doing the politically correct thing seems to be more important at the moment. How long this can go on, who knows? But so certainly, I think from the announcements about the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games, it can be deducted that China will be closed until March. when the Paralympics end. And then, well, let's hope that then from Easter in our calendar, China will open up, and maybe it will be gradually. Maybe it will be done not for the whole world, but just for some countries first. But of course, there have been some pessimistic voices saying November 2022 is when Xi Jinping wants to be re-elected for a third time. So the first time a Chinese leader is getting a third term, and that for questions of stability of the country, China will be closed for another year, which, well, I hope that's not true.
What would that mean for Macau? What would that mean for Macau if that was the case?
Well, what would that mean for Macau, and what would that mean for Hong Kong as well? Well, nothing good. Nothing good, that's for sure. So, and therefore, yeah, this is the question. So that from the outside, you would think, no, Beijing has no interest in putting Macau and Hong Kong into deep economic trouble, to say politely. But that is what it seems to happen. So I had the impression in the past months that Macau was somehow spared all the restrictions, and that some of the restrictions on Hong Kong and on online gaming and so on were actually supporting gaming industry in Macau, but that seems no longer to be the case.
One last question then. So the integrated resorts around Asia that have been targeting that market should pick up on that in terms of providing more in terms of experiences, non-gaming entertainment, those elements.
Yes, yes. Of course, gaming will still be important, but I think you have to add other attractions to that, and that will be family-based stuff, so educational activities for kids, but also not just being behind barbed wire walls, isolated from the rest of the destination, but opening the gates and also making sure that this is something where you can enjoy also the place where you actually are, and that will be also a way to have additional income, of course, for these resorts.
Thank you for joining us today. I've been talking with Professor Wolfgang Arlt. He's the director and founder of the Chinese Outbound Tourism Institute.